Welcome back to GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Tuesday, February 11th. If you're just tuning in, we just finished going over Kellen Moore being officially hired and named the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. In this segment, we're going to go over everything, all of the 7 hires in the coaching carousel, and do a full report card. Give them a letter grade, talk a little bit about them, and why this fit is good or bad. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Tuesday, February 11th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the NFL coaching report card here as we officially wrapped up the NFL coaching carousel earlier today. And we're going to start off with our number 7 spot here. And that goes to the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys and Brian Schottenheimer have been together for a little while. He's the offensive coordinator currently. The Cowboys went out and hired him in really a head-scratching move. If anything, this feels like a move for Jerry Jones to just have a pseudo head coach over there as he tries to take a little more control back of this organization. Didn't like the way it was going, and I think they kind of wanted to bring back Mike McCarthy. When ultimately that failed, when they couldn't get the negotiations done for whatever reason that was, they decided to go with his offensive coordinator and continue what had already been in there. That's not a move that I think works really well. First of all, this is a team that's kind of going to be stuck, right? They don't have a lot of money to go out and do what they need to do, which is re-sign Micah Parsons and then also go get some more guys, right? They still have a little bit of work to do as far as trying to build a Super Bowl team. Right now, they're more of a playoff team if they're healthy. We saw that really go and bite them in the butt last season. The health was not there, and they didn't have the depth to do it because they're paying all of these guys so much money. CeeDee Lamb didn't have his breakout as huge of a season as he did the year before, what he got paid for. Bringing in a guy like Brian Schottenheimer just doesn't move me as much as a lot of other moves would, so I'm going to give this move an F for the Cowboys. I think this is the worst coaching hire. It's the most uninspiring coaching hire as well, and I was kind of expecting more, especially after everything that happened with the late firing, letting the contract run out of a guy in Mike McCarthy. Number 6, we have the Raiders, and it's not necessarily that I don't like Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is a coach that I do like. Pete Carroll is a coach that I think can do a lot, but I also don't think he's going to be there for another 10 years. Generally, when we're looking at coaching hires, we're looking at a guy that can be there for the foreseeable future. You don't want to hire a guy and then get back into the coaching market just a couple years later. And I think Pete Carroll is a guy that can find good success. He needs to find a quarterback, and that's something that Vegas is not going to be able to do this season unless they go find a gem or they're able to continue the magic that the Vikings were able to put on Sam Darnold, as reports are they're interested in a guy like him. This is just a hire that I think is going to be good, right? I like Pete Carroll, but it's not going to change the trajectory of this organization. Pete Carroll did an excellent job in Seattle. He's won basically everywhere he's gone. He's part of an elite club of coaches that have won a national championship in college and a Super Bowl in the NFL, right? That's rarefied air. That's not something that's easy to do. That's something that's very impressive. He's also the oldest head coach. He's older than Bill Belichick is if Bill Belichick was still coaching. He's 73. He doesn't have that much longer to coach, and he looks good. I think he could coach for another 5 years, but you're not hiring a guy just for 5 years. Eventually, he's going to retire. Eventually, he's going to want out. And I just don't like the long-term options of this trade. In the short term, it'll be good. I really do like Pete Carroll as a head coach, and I think he'll be successful. But I don't think his heart is all the way in it. He's still coaching class. He's still teaching classes over at USC while he's a head coach, which isn't necessarily a great sign. I give that move a C+. At number 5, I'm giving it to the Saints. We just talked all about Kellen Moore and his fist with the Saints. I like it. I think it's just going to take a little while, and I'm not convinced they're going to be patient. If they're not patient with Kellen Moore, this is going to be a dumpster fire of a move and a waste of a pretty smart football mind. Kellen Moore, I think, is a good fit, again, if they're patient. Overall, we talked a lot about this move in the last segment if you want to hear my full thoughts, but I'm going to give this one a B-. I love the offensive head coach fit over there. I just want to see how they're able to handle the transition from the end of the Derek Carr era / salary cap sink era, and they get ready for the rebuild. At number 4, I've got the Jets. I really like what I heard from Aaron Glenn. Aaron Glenn seems like a guy that can really turn this team around, but he's also a defensive-minded guy, which is exactly what they had in Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh's press conference was similarly pretty good when he got introduced. This is a guy that's going to make some sweeping changes. They've already said that they're out on Aaron Rodgers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either. They're back to square one, which I think is important. They've got some talent, a very talented defense, and I think Aaron Glenn will be able to turn that defense around, at least stop them from kind of giving up halfway through the season like they did when they fired Robert Saleh, when the Jets fired Robert Saleh. I think that's going to make this defense play at least a lot better than it did this season. But again, I'm not sure how that quarterback search is going to go. They decided to move off of a talented quarterback in Aaron Rodgers, a guy that was at least minimum top 20 quarterback in the NFL in a year where there's not a very good quarterback class and there's not a lot of great quarterback options in free agency either. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me why you move off him this year, aside from, you just needed him out of the locker room, which probably fair. But Aaron Glenn, I think a good hire. I gave him a solid B here. Number 3, I'm giving to the Patriots. And the reason I'm putting Mike Vrabel at number 3 isn't because I don't think he's a good head coach. I think he's done an amazing job. He's won Coach of the Year He's won Coach of the Year before with Tennessee. What he's been able to do with injured rosters, with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, have been great. But I would have liked to see them go and pursue. They were the first team to hire a coach. They basically had decided they wanted Mike Vrabel. I wanted them to go and pursue an offensive-minded head coach for a quarterback like Drake May. I think it's excellent for a quarterback's development, a young quarterback's development, if he's able to pair himself up with an offensive-minded head coach. And maybe you can get that out of Josh McDaniels, who's coming back. But I'm not so convinced that he's going to be that great offensive mind that's going to be able to help develop a quarterback. That quarterback-head coach relationship is very important. And I think Mike Vrabel is going to do a great job. I do, but I would have liked them to try and go out and even attempt to get a guy like a Ben Johnson, or attempt to go get a guy like a Liam Cohen or a Kellen Moore. Some of these offensive-minded guys that ended up getting hired this cycle. That's what I would have liked to see. Overall, a good hire, still in the top 3, and I'm going to give it a B. At number 2, I'm giving it to the Jaguars and Liam Cohen. I love this move. He had a little bit of an awkward moment in that press conference when he did the Duval, right? But Liam Cohen, I think, is an excellent football mind. He's going to go out there and he's going to work with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence is finally going to have that offensive-minded guy, right? He came in the league with Urban Meyer. Ugh. Then Doug Peterson, who... fine, but he's not going to be that guy that's going to develop. This is going to be a team that is based only around Trevor Lawrence, and it's going to be basically up to him whether or not they're successful. Whether or not Liam Cohen is a successful head coach is going to be how he's going to be able to build around Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's good for Trevor Lawrence. They've paid him like the prince that he is, right? They've paid him that $50+ million contract. He's going to be there for a long time. He is their franchise guy. And they fired Trent Baalke over this, which was the best move anyway. But they made a decisive action. They went out and they got the guy that they liked. They went out and they got the guy that probably is the second best offensive mind here. But he's the second best offensive mind for a reason, and that's why he's at number 2. Overall, a B+ here. And the final grade on the report card goes to the Bears. The Bears, they got the big fish. They got the number 1 option out there. They got Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson, who had been picky in the past, who probably had jobs last coaching cycle, decided, no, I'm going to run it back with the Detroit Lions. Took him not quite as far as last year. They ran into a red-hot Washington team, a team that he probably could have been the head coach of last season if he hadn't turned it down. The Bears go out and they get Ben Johnson. Liam Cohen, I gave him a B+. because he's just like a Walmart version of Ben Johnson in this coaching cycle, at least, right? That's not to say that he's not going to be great, because I think he will. But Ben Johnson was the big fish. The Raiders were all over him. The Bears were all over him. The Jags were all over him. The Jets were all over him. Everybody, this was the number one option aside from the Patriots, right? They all wanted Ben Johnson, and the Bears were able to land him. Now he just needs to develop that playbook with Caleb Williams. And I think that's the best possible thing the Bears could have done. They're able to get Caleb Williams, an offensive-minded guy, the guy that he wanted publicly, and the guy, and generally the Bears aren't able to attract that, but because Caleb Williams is such a big name, because he was such a highly regarded prospect, this is someone that I think Ben Johnson and a lot of other offensive coaches wanted to work with. This is a really good get for them. This can hopefully turn their franchise around. It's been a while since the Bears have been competitive. It's been a while since the Bears have been good, but I love this hire, and I'm going to give it an A. But let me know what your thoughts are. What was the best coaching hire? What grade would you give all 7 of them? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, welcome to draft season, ladies and gentlemen. Mock Draft 2.0 coming up right around the corner. All 32 teams for you. We'll be right back here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.